Yeah, I'm right here. What's
Okay,
good?
great. All right, good stuff, brother. Go ahead and introduce yourself before we start our conversation. Starting off with the Chris Rock clip and talking about black folks versus ninjas. But thank you, and introduce yourself as well, and then we'll get started with this morning's content.
How you doing, Latrice? What's going on, my children? How y'all feeling today, man? My name Brother Ankh, uh, community skeptic, pseudo killer, and proud supporter of Black people in America.
Hey, love it. And so again, we started again. Today's conversation is black folks versus ninja. I think Chris Rock is a famous bit. Everybody's probably seen it. Again, I watch it. I love it. And here's the thing: the reason we love comedy, or the best comedy, I should say, but the best comedy out there is when a comedian can take elements of the truth and kind of exaggerate it to make it funny, right? Like that's when comedy hits the best, when it's actually something that's relatable because it's true, right? Well, at the end of the day, it becomes comedy because the comedian brilliantly, they're brilliant comedians, and they're brilliant people. Comedians exaggerate the truth, but we love it because of that the part that is true hits home. And I think plenty of people watch that clip and say it's so funny, and simply say because it's true. We negate the exaggeration of it. And that part actually matters because we will hear that funny clip and assume it to be actually true and disregard the exaggeration of it. Latrice, you hear where I'm going with this? Because I would like to get your opinion first in reference to, as much as I love that clip and as funny as it is, again, he's my favorite comedian of the current times. However, I'm still aware of the art of comedy, and I think sometimes we laugh at ourselves and dismiss the art of it, if that makes sense. Go ahead, Queen.
I think that can be true. I think my problem with comedy, and I understand it, and I get that it's, the exaggeration of it is funny, but because we live in the society that we do live in, I think it lends itself to some of the stereotypes that others place on us. And so we can take the stance of, well, who cares what they think? Or we can, examine the impact of his comedy. So I see both sides of it, and they both make sense to me. It just depends on, I think in this day and age, if he had done that in this day and age, I think it would definitely be more harmful with regard to the impact, just because of where we are as a society right now, where it is okay to be openly racist.
No, I think that's very fair. I understand exactly what you're saying. I definitely want to hear what Brother Unk has to say to what you just had to say. So, bro, before
I didn't catch that clip.
Okay. Got you. Just to give you a quick reminder, I'm pretty sure it's something you heard. I'm going to make you a long response. But if you recall, the famous Chris Rock's bit where he says, I love black people, but I hate niggas. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that famous clip, and he gives these funny back and forths about how black people act and what niggas do, if you will, using the language that he used. And so I'm not going to ask you to respond 1,000% to the clip, but were you able to gather anything from what Latrice talked about, just from a comedy standpoint? Because as I already said, Chris Rock aside, we see that often in comedy, which I think is Latrice's point. To her, she's just saying there's some type of comedy when reference to, even though there is an exaggeration, she feels like we're in current times where had Chris Rock brought that same bit out right now, she sees it from her perspective as a diversity consultant as being detrimental because of the impact amongst current times. Can you relate and kind of get
I can relate
out of what I just said, even though you missed it? Go ahead, brother.
There's always some truth in comedy anyway. There's always some truth in the joke, but it's comedy. And it's a way to get your thing off and still be funny about it. That's how the society is actually constructed. What I will say is white people can act like niggas too. Chinese people can act like niggas. Acting like a nigga is not exclusive for black people, although we use the word in different variations of your tonality. It can be a term of endearment. It's a specialized term for us. Okay. It's also a term that connects us back to our history, the history of slavery, and the way they said it and the way they did it. So I recognize the whole thing is a very complex word there. So at the end of the day, when you acting like a nigga, that means you acting real ignorant, you out of order, and you disrespectful to yourself and everybody around you. That's what I mean when I call you a nigga and use a certain tonality. Just want to add that to the conversation.
No, that's a great ad, and it's a great segue into this next clip from First Time Felon. And so I really want to break this clip down because I think it's going to really get us into the actual discussion of black folks versus ninjas out there, if you will. And it's like, I think it's the perfect clip because there's some things that you understand the sentiment of what he's saying. As a matter of fact, let me just play the clip versus me explaining it. How about that?
God, I hate niggas. I love black people. Honest, hardworking, law-abiding black people. Niggas like you make me sick. There's no problem for a nigga to get his own people hooked on drugs, got the young girls on the corner turning $5 tricks. No problem for a nigga to shoot another nigga. No problem for a nigga to rob and steal from good, honest, hardworking black people. That's what they want. You're doing their work for them. What's so fucked up about that? You look at me and you call me an Uncle Tom? You are the Uncle Tom. You fucking joke. You are the real enemy of black people. When white people look at me, it kills me that they see you because ain't but one nigga in this here closet. You been here this long? You gonna try to run a game on me? This here is where the game ends. I don't believe you're ever gonna have a home, or have a half-decent job, or get an education, or even have a family worth of shit. You know why? Do you know why? Because you're happy just to be a motherfucking nigga. The clock is ticking, son. You have no time.
Very, very, very powerful clip from First Time Felon. I don't know if either of you've seen that movie. I highly recommend it for anybody if you have not seen it. Featuring Omar Epps. Just to give a little more context, just highlighting his life in the Chicago gang culture and how hard it was for him to get back on his feet after becoming a first-time felon. Great movie. What's how you said it? Latrice, you know how I said it? Delroy. How you said that guy?
Delroy Lindo.
Delroy Lindo, great actor. You know, we know he's hands down one of the greatest of our time, if you will, and played that part brilliantly. Here's what I wanted to discuss out of that piece. Ankh, I'll start with you again, just kind of going back and forth with you guys. But there's a couple things that he pointed out in there. You can just respond first and after I say this. A couple of things that I pointed out. He's obviously still making that distinction, right? That's today's discussion, black folks versus ninja. And he says, I love black people, but I hate niggas, right? And so as he's going down and running down to Omar Epps in his character, he's saying, hey, here are the things that you lean into. He says, but we're in this closet. He says, I hate, let me go here first before I go to that part. He highlights, you call me the Uncle Tom, but you're the Uncle Tom. I always like to highlight, for those who don't know in history, Uncle Tom was actually the hero. And we misnomer Uncle Tom, you know, from Uncle Tom's Cabin. He absolutely, when I say not only was he the hero, Uncle Tom in the actual Uncle Tom's Cabin is not what you think Uncle Tom is. Uncle Tom actually risked his life to save other black people in the novel. So just to give that one piece of context too, we misnomer Uncle Tom. We shouldn't say Uncle Tom. We should never say it. We have it misnomer. Now back to when he says, I love black people. He says, but I hate in this closet that white people will look at me and think of you. That's what Delroy Linda's character says. That's the bigger dialogue when you get to the mental dialogue perspective. Getting into the mental thought process of being worried about how white people look at him based on how they look at Omar as a gang member, that they look at me the same. That's the dialogue that we want to have today. So, Brother, do you see how I'm pointing it out? Because that's a miss right there, Roy, to be concerned how white people look at him because of a gang member who's committed a felony. That's a mistake. And we still do that today in 2026. When we look at one another, we're concerned at how some of us, not all of us, are concerned about how white people see us in comparison to ninjas, I guess, to use the right word today on YouTube, because we don't want to get the show shut down. So we're gonna say ninjas outside of when the clip is said. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so that's always a very, very, very problematic. Actually, you should judge each individual on their own character, and you should never judge one individual based off of what you perceive a population does. That's like being a Muslim. You can't treat all Muslims as if they're terrorists. That's the same type of mindset. The police up in there, he wilding out because he understands that the brother is a gangbanger and potentially could do harm to his own community, whether they in disputes shooting each other. Is real wild behavior, right? And he hates that behavior. But actually what he's really saying is he hates criminals. And for some odd reason, he think we place criminality with black people. And so he's going to deem him a ninja because of that. And I think the whole mindset was wild. When actually he should be reaching out to the brother and help him out so he can return to society to be very, very productive, because he don't know how the brother was raised. He don't know what he went through. And to classify him like that, I think that's very, very small-minded on his part. That's my attitude. And Montre, I just want to welcome my audience, the community of skeptics in the building, man. I see they all in here. And, from time to time, I want to bring y'all stimulating conversation from Latrice and Latoya. The mental dialogue has been a very, very refreshing thing for me in my life for the past, 20 years? And so as you see me grow, it was based off of conversations with Montoya. Man, he helped me get through my black allergy. That could be a whole nother show, because we had prolific stand-up battles every single day at the gym, like all out. I threw everything at him but the kitchen sink. So when you see Montoya, he actually represents. I had somebody that went to college, studied real history, and I tried the black allergy game, yo, and I got defeated, yo. It's not too often I get defeated, but he helped shape what y'all see now. The community of skeptics, the way I think, leaning into scientific literacy, leaning to the quote unquote education. Try not to, destroy people, God, because you're going to lose them in the conversation. All these things I incorporate based off of him. So I just want everybody to know. You've been on the show. They know you is.
No, it's all good, brother. I appreciate the community of skeptics for being here, because I see y'all up in the comments. We're going to get some of y'all comments up on the board as well. So thank you for that, brother. But Latrice, if you will, let's jump right back into, again, I saw some problems with Delroy Linda did in that as his character in that movie. Your thoughts. So again, I think it applies to the bigger picture to today's conversation, because I want to do it from a mental space versus just simply agreeing whether blacks versus ninjas is a real thing. It is a real thing mentally, in my opinion. But go ahead, Queen.
I think what Delroy Lindo leaned into was respectability politics in that statement. And that goes back to Jim Crow. It goes back to slavery, where Black folks felt that if they put on more attributes of the oppressor, that the oppressor would accept him. And that still exists in our society today. One of the things that differentiates our community from other communities is how we believe, and to some extent it's true, that we are all judged by the behaviors of those who act out negatively, who engage in negative behavior. No other demographic has to deal with that. No one says all of the white people do this because Trump is a criminal, or serial killer. What was his name back in the 70s and 80s? That was a politician.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Maybe. Or Jeffrey Dahmer, maybe. Either way, any of them.
Yeah, either way, but they don't judge the whole race because of one bad apple. And so, while to a certain extent that may be true, we as a community should not lean into respectability politics, because at the end of the day, we're essentially saying we have to assimilate and behave like them in order to be accepted. Now, there was a time and place when that was needed for survival. I don't think it's needed for survival at this point in our history.
Good stuff. Let me break down some of what you're saying before we get to another clip from my perspective and get y'all thoughts on it as well. And so it's what you just said, Latrice, is sometimes I think we're unaware of, in a sense, the evolution of thinking, right? Like with in his community, they study evolution down to the science, right? Like I've learned a lot from like we both met each other already understanding the scientific methodology, but he goes deep into it all the way down to looking at DNA and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think we ever understand that thinking also is evolutionary, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you just leaned into is, for example, it's been time to have the dialogue of, in my opinion, of what I'm about to say. Some people may have thought about it, but I think when we start talking about evolution of thought, like you were right, there was a period where that type of thinking may have played a role in the survival of our people. What happens, in my opinion, is often we don't think about evolving from that thinking in a time when things are different. We're in a time now where here's a reality. We understand, for example, that white people will still generalize. That's why the news is covered the way it is about, for example, our criminality. When Brother Ankh just mentioned that brother he said exactly right. He should be related as a criminal. It shouldn't be equated to blackness. That's the propaganda that makes people relate criminal to blackness. So we understand that white America will still do that. They started that type of propaganda. They will still do that. We must evolve in thought to where we don't accept that type of propaganda. And it doesn't mean that we have to also see it as an indictment on us. Because to your point, the mass shooters, typically most mass shooters, is very rarely is it ever a black person, right? But what white people who have not come up under, in a sense, the struggle that our community came up under, in other words, they were not propagandized and demonized just by their worst. They never look at a mass shooter and say, that's a representation of us as white people. They actually have that right. Like, that's where we have to evolve to. We have to evolve to, because that's the correct way to think. You don't see your worst as a representation of yourself, especially if what that person does is something you would never do. That is actually the normal way to think. Now, because of racial constructs, whites won't apply that to us. But I don't give a damn if they do. But I do give a damn if we continue to do that blanket approach to ourselves, because that's not correct thinking. Go ahead, Latrice.
But it's subtle too, and it's handed down. It's one of those things. Oftentimes we don't question what our parents and grandparents, how they raise us, and they're handing down what they were taught. That was taught during the Jim Crow era, where black folks felt that they needed to behave and present themselves a certain way in order to be accepted by civil society. And so it's been passed down. I remember my grandmother, there were things that she totally just drove her crazy. I have a really loud, goofy laugh. She hated it because it's not respectable. And how you present yourself when you leave out of the house, and make certain that you don't do this and you don't do that, because that's not acceptable behavior. And I remember she did laundry for this prominent white family in my hometown, Montezuma, Georgia. And I remember the matriarch of that family was coming to pick up her laundry. And I was outside, and my grandmother, she said, "Is that your granddaughter?" And first, one of the things I hated was he called my grandmother Iona, but my grandmother called her Mrs. Whatever. And what she told me was, she spoke, and I said hello. She said, "What grade?" I told her, and she said, "You are so well spoken for a little colored girl." And my grandmother knew that I was about to say something, because she started pinching me, that pinch that nobody can see, but you feel it. And she really began to work on me with the respectability politics after that. And so I grew up with someone trying to force feed me respectability politics. And a lot of other folks did it too. And it's so subtle. We teach our kids, don't do this or don't do that. And we get so proud when we're out and they say, "Oh, you have such a well-behaved child." Let children be children. Granted, there are certain constraints, but we instill that And that's how it keeps going from one generation to the next generation to the next. And it's time for us to stop that. And I talk about that a large part in the very first section of my book.
Now I look forward to the book coming out. And again, I'm just using this platform right now to just start having the dialogue to become aware, because at the end of the day, your grandmother came up in a time where that was necessary, as we just kind of highlighted, for some type of survival. So it's not your grandmother's fault per se.
No.
Like that, we're not doing that, but it becomes a dialogue to where we don't allow what they think of us to apply to us if that's not what you do, or some type of respectability thing that makes you cater or make like you can't allow it to apply to all of us. Brother, do you see kind of where
Yeah,
we're going?
I got
here?
you.
Yeah,
I got
jump
you.
in.
I was raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and my aunts and uncle, they were entrepreneurs, and they used to babysit me. So the thing for us was, don't miscount that damn money, regardless if it's a white person back. Had the money right. And back in them days, they didn't have the regular cash. We had to poop. When I used to struggle with it, my cousins joked me and all that. So I had to get through that. I had to learn, had to catch up real fast, right? About 5 or 6, we run to the little corner store. We ran the cash register, and you had to be sharp. So my family was very outgoing. My mother and them, I never heard don't act up in front of white people. Don't act up, period, and have people think that you weren't raised right. So it never was a color issue. It was like, when you go outside, you actually represent the family. Like, I don't think anybody could stop my mouth, so they never really tried to, right? I've always outspoken at 3, 4, 5, 6 till right now. Very talkative. The worst thing I did in school was talk. Used to get unsatisfactory conduct. And my mom would ask, what did he do? Well, he just keep talking, right? And so, no, that type of dynamics wasn't there. Very open, wasn't over Christianized. That was part of the deal. My father didn't believe in it. My mother was very loose with it, say you got to figure it out for yourself. My aunt and them, they was about that business and that money. So, my grandmother, she's straight Bible, the whole thing, right? And she used to be the nurse that used to breastfeed the babies, all type of stuff. But the wild part about it is that actually gave our family sway. The craziest thing ever, the fact that she had babysitted a lot of the millionaires' babies in Baltimore, Maryland, gave us sway. The wildest thing ever. They loved my grandmother to death, right? And when it came to buying a car from a Jewish dealership or something, we always got that break. When it came, we always got that break. So for me, I think I just was in the perfect situation there. My father worked for a Jewish clothing store. He was a tailor, right? Got that respect, learn how to dress, learn about material. So that kind of thing, don't act no way. I was always taught your best weapon, son, is you. Be yourself. So I never experienced that.
And I think that's a difference between Baltimore and the Deep South.
Yeah.
As well, because I grew up in a rural town in Middle Georgia that had a KKK march on the day after I graduated high school in 1986. So, and to a certain degree, that part of the country is still very much mired in that type of behavior.
No, you're correct.
So
the last march in my town was 85 on Latrice.
Wow.
Yeah, so yours is 1 year later than mine. Like you just said, 86. Yeah, the last one was in 85 in mine.
Yeah, white people lock their doors when we walk by them in Baltimore. Click, 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 click. You're like, oh man, let's make them lock their doors. You walk by, click, 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 click. The whole now you're right. When I came to Georgia, white people mentality was different. They was like, I ain't scared of you. Say what? I was like, oh, that's a white boy, really? They pull that gun out. You be like, oh, hell, it's a place to carry, and you can carry your job. I'm like, oh, man. So you're right. She's absolutely right. If people don't know it, there's a different type of white person that lives in the Bible Belt called Georgia. They different. They don't care. You're right.
All right. So I'm gonna bring this back to us because there's a point I feel like we're missing before I go to the next clip. And this next clip is going to be Charleston White, and it's going to be very interesting to take us on another deep dive. So I want to make sure I'm being clear about this. So love everything y'all are saying. Here's what and y'all may not have missed it, but I feel like it just based on the way we're talking about it. I'm really highlighting conceptually for any of our viewers out there. Again, this is mental dialogue. We want to raise the level of our thinking. All I ask is that you think. And so what I want to most be aware of is how we mistakenly see things that have done negative in our community and we attribute it to ourselves. Like we take that blanket, like we all can hear me say the propaganda of how they present the news and show us as criminals and show us on the news as only criminals. And we go, oh yeah, we recognize that's propaganda. But we're often unaware of that. We receive it and actually internalize what some Black person does over there, some horrendous thing that Black person does. There's a psychological concept of us. The us makes us actually say, man, I'm ashamed of that. And what I'm really talking about is normal thinking is to, if that's not something you do or will be involved in, you shouldn't give a damn. That's normal thinking. That's what, I'm gonna say it again. That's what white people do when some mass shooter shows up or some serial shows up. They don't see it as attributed to them. I'm challenging us to become aware that we should not see it as us, even though the news does that propaganda. I'm saying be aware of the propaganda and not continue to perpetuate that amongst our kids. We get mad and be like, man, look at what we done. When you say that around a child, they're gonna grow up. It's a natural passed down thing that Latrice talked about. So I just want to make sure that we're being very clear.
More importantly than that, it's a mental part of it that we don't think about. There's this concept called stereotype threat, where we allow the fear of fulfilling those negative stereotypes about us to impact us so much that we actually begin to underperform. There have been studies done where Black students and white students have been tested, where they're testing the concept of stereotype threat. And when those students have been, certain negative things have been said about Black folks and they go test, they actually score less on those tests than they did before, because that level of anxiety causes their brains to actually underperform. And so there is an impact to us psychologically that manifests itself physically when we engage in that behavior and sort of internalize it, so much so that we want to make certain that we are not triggering those thoughts.
Yeah, it's not easy. The propaganda is real. When they only, like, I mean, for example, here's a number just to be real clear. Brother Uncle, I'll let you say something. But for example, this is just one example just to get this clear in people's head. So, like, for example, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, I was listening to a conservative talk radio show, and even the conservative host highlighted how it didn't make sense here in Atlanta that 86% of marijuana drug stops were Black. He was like, how does that make sense? At this time, like right now, most people don't realize this, but Atlanta, the city of Atlanta itself is only like 51 or 52% Black or whatever. And he was like, well, because even he was concluding, he was like, at the end of the day, we know white and Blacks use marijuana. As a matter of fact, teenage whites to 25, they use marijuana more than Black people do. But generally speaking, people use marijuana, Black and white, about the same. So how in the world, he was like, how in the world is 86? And he looked at some other districts, 90% of the marijuana drug possession specifically were Black people. That's being driven by the propaganda. So I'm just kind of saying all of that when they're showing that, when the reality is white kids, for example, use a little more marijuana than Black people. So by the actual real numbers, that number should be 50-50 at the worst. But it's 80-90% in municipalities all throughout the country because of the propaganda. So it's not easy to not see us as such when that's what you're being shown on the news. I am challenging us not to be Delroy or Linda in that clip, not to accept the propaganda, be aware of the propaganda, and don't say, why are we always doing this if what they're doing is not something you do. It should be dismissed, just like white people dismiss mass shooters. That's the dialogue, the mental dialogue that we must start having with ourselves. Give me a thought on that, brother. We'll go to another clip.
Okay. Here's the deal. That's a monumental task. What you're actually asking us to do is you're asking us to mature as a people in America. It's a very immature statement when you say, man, they are embarrassing us, right? You're embarrassing us. But a mature culture doesn't say that. They be like, that's a damn fool. Ain't got nothing to do with me. But that's a level of maturity. Just like when you say the white man's science. Let me get this right. The white man's science, right? When you say that, that means you have not matured. Meaning, mature culture, mature civilization can actually see the value in the conqueror system that they have and use it to their advantage to grow. The Koreans, the Chinese, they have a mature culture that they brought from China or Korea.
Mm-hmm.
They have not been affected by the slave trade. The slave trade strips you of everything and you start from the beginning. So you're asking us to mature. That's a mature way of looking at the world. And bro, fighting with the scientific literacy, we have no maturity yet, right? We will get there. But right now, as a whole, we have not matured because we still think we fight. We still think it's the 40s.
Right.
We act and fight as if we're in the 40s. We do not accept our gains. A mature culture accepts their victories, right, and respects their losses and makes sure they don't lose again. And I hope I made that very, very clear.
Very clear, bro. I love it. Let's go to this clip from Charleston White. And his brother definitely is out here on these internet streets making us think. So I thought this was a very interesting clip from him. He was on, make sure to give them their credit. This was on the Boss Talks podcast that this clip comes from. So let's sit back. There's a lot in here to unpack. Latrice, I'll let you respond first after listening to Charleston White. There's a couple clips. We're going to do clip one first.
I know because in Jamaica, when I did some research on it, because we had Arawak's Indian was they're black women in different cultures.
We don't. They ain't black.
I'm Jamaican.
You ain't black.
Then what am I?
Jamaican.
I'm black.
You Jamaican.
No.
You Jamaican.
It's a difference, huh?
It's a difference.
Okay, describe the difference.
If I go to your...
What color is my skin? What color is my skin?
Yellow.
Okay, and it derived from?
Even white derived from black. Even white derived from black. All colors in the color spectrum come from the black. But y'all have been classified as Jamaicans. We still haven't been identified nor classified. We were just given a color.
When I fill out a paperwork here in the States, it doesn't say Jamaican anywhere.
But black is not a person. That's not a noun. Mm-hmm. That's more of an adjective, isn't it? Well, how can you describe me as being black? You have a name. You're Jamaican.
You're American.
Well, I'm black American.
Okay, I'm black Jamaican.
It don't say that. You're making something up now. It don't say that. Our paperwork, we have to check something. When you go back home, you don't check nothing. You're automatic Jamaican.
Right.
I'm not automatic American. I'm automatic black. Black people aren't American. We had to be given American rights. You see what I'm saying? So when we say black, we talking us. Mm-hmm. Y'all ain't us. Mm. Don't y'all got Jamaican food?
Yes.
Don't y'all have a Jamaican culture?
Yes.
We don't.
You have an American culture.
What's
in Texas? In Texas, you have soul food.
What's
barbecue?
That's our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Black slaves didn't barbecue. Slaves didn't barbecue. Slaves didn't create that.
Mm-hmm.
Soul food, pig intestines, pig feet.
So what did slaves used to eat?
The slop that their masters gave them, like the dogs, what you would give your dogs. That's what they ate. And that became part of what we ate. So you say that's our culture?
No.
Come on, don't do us like that, please. I understand you play devil's advocate, but nobody in this world have been done like the person, not the African. See, this is what people forget. It was a small portion of Africans who was transported over here and was made to be slaves. It was a small portion. The rest was created and bred. They had slave form, but they bred this because slavery, international slavery, was only legal for a small amount of time before the world said, no, stop this. So America kept saying, fuck y'all, we ain't finna stop this. They started making slaves, right? So the first generation of Africans who came over here to be slaves, they wasn't niggers. They was Africans. The ones who was born from the Africans, right? The ones who was forced to have sex and sleep with this one, those that was born on this land under slavery, into slavery, they were niggers. Them wasn't black people, them was niggers. They was called nigger. Come here, nigga. Shut up, nigga. Fuck you doing around here, nigga? He didn't have a name. So those people never thought to go back to Africa. They didn't know no language. So we, those seeds, we are not African seeds. We are not, we don't have no African bloodline other than what the white boy have. We was born to slaves. Nobody else was done that. And nobody else was done how those people was done.
Lot in there, Latrice. I'll just kind of let you jump in. Anything that stood out to you, assuming that's the first time you've heard that clip. There's a lot of places to go there, but I'm just kind of interested in what stood out.
So, I do appreciate the distinction between Black American versus Caribbean American or Jamaican American. You know, from a cultural perspective, that makes sense. And it does have an impact because I definitely believe in respecting folks' culture. And, you know, my bestie is of Jamaican descent, and they have a distinctively different culture than folks who were born and raised in the Black folks born and raised in the U.S. I think the woman in that discussion was perhaps alluding to the lived experiences as being a Black person, Black presenting person in this country. The lived experiences are similar as it relates to interacting with the global minority. And so love that he's, you know, distinguishing between the cultures, but I think that what was missed was the lived experiences if you present yourself as Black in this country.
All right, Brother Ankh, anything that stood out? I know we've had many discussions. The one thing that I do personally respect, and I think Latrice alluded to this as well, just highlighting that the Black American experience is an experience in itself. And you and I have been part of many dialogues where there's, you know, you and I both, I think we both agree, unfortunate arguments over whether that distinction should exist for other reasons other than what we're bringing here today. I don't bring that conversation in today. However, I do that designation. Yeah, that designation is necessary. So I think Charleston White correctly makes that designation. So that's one thing that I do agree with him on. But is there any thoughts about what he had to say?
We call it truth and falsehood strangely mixed. He's a nut. He's a babbler. He's wild. He'll make a statement, then he'll.
Now, I hope you don't make this about him because you know we don't do.
No. It's about his statements, and he's the person that made those statements.
So I'm just saying,
he's the one that put those statements together. He's back. I'm attacking the statements that a person named him made. Simple as that. Right? Like that's not attacking a person. Then he shouldn't run his mouth. He shouldn't say it then. First of all, he talks about first of all, he gives a pseudoscientific statement of all colors come from Black. That's ridiculous. The second point, the lady got a right to call herself what she wanted to call herself. And next, first of all, Black, anything could be considered Black. So that's not even actually relevant. So if she calls herself black, that's how she feel. We understand that's a colonial statement. You got colonized into calling yourself black because it takes you away from your country. It takes you away from your place of origin when you say black. There's no way to tell who the hell is black. The next point is, he claims that we don't have a culture. That's a bunch of nonsense. We have African American culture, steeped in indigenous African culture, mixed with European culture, little bit of Native American flavor to it, little bit of it, right? That makes it African American. We formed our own unique culture in America. That's why I say I'm black and I'm proud. I use the term black for political reasons. But African Americans have a unique culture, unique food, blend of different things. And so that's incorrect for him to say that. The next point.
I actually think he would agree with what you just said, though. But go ahead.
No, he gonna lie. Anyway, see, you keep doing it and tell me don't say nothing about him.
I think I've watched enough to know that he would agree with that point.
Can't watch that, man.
But anyway, go ahead and finish your other point. Go ahead.
Okay. He said he never wanted to go back to Africa. Wait a minute. First of all,
say it again.
He said that the Negro never wanted to go back to Africa. Right? He said the Africans, we said once we formed, we never want to go back to Africa. Why would we want to go back to Africa when we built this for free? We built our home right here. We was disconnected from our culture and our history. That's what slavery is. It's the ultimate eraser. So we started over again. And no, I'm not going back because I built this for free. Now, if you'd have paid me a nice, healthy sum of money, then I could have picked up and left and went back maybe. But since I built it for free, this is just as much my home as the Europeans' home. See, that's what I'm saying. The last point.
I think he would agree with that too.
The last point. He said there's no African blood in this. He's a pseudo. His statements is pseudo. First of all, we have African genetics to the tune of 80 to 90%. Our genetic gene pool comes from Mama Africa, West and Central Africa, right? I'm not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because it was born in me through my genes. Okay? So he mixed a lot of stuff and it sound good. See, we never get an actual chance to talk to people like that. That lady was unprepared to handle his pseudoscientific mixed wild statements. It sounded good, but we never get to talk to people like that, bro. It's like they keep us away from them because you know what, yo? We'll show them the errors of their ways the same way you showed me the errors of my ways 20 years ago. You get the point? I rest my case.
No, that's good stuff. And I expect you to go into the nuance of the particulars because that's your area of expertise. I would massage between the two of you if I could dialogue between you and brother Charleston White. I think I could massage the ideas because I think because you're going to be scientifically right. That's what you do. So I get how if something said scientifically incorrectly, you're always going to correct that part. I think he's generalizing for the sake of the show. Again, it's not even about me agreeing with it. I'm just talking about the dialogue that we're having today.
Yeah, I got you.
I think it is very necessary that something that we both have always agreed is the Black, African American, whatever terminology you want to use, experience has created a culture in itself. I absolutely think Charleston White would absolutely agree with it. He happens to term it as the ninja culture. Again, I'm saying ninja so we don't get shut down on this show, right? Like we can play the clips, but if we're saying it live, they'll shut you down. So he's proud of the ninja culture. So that's why I think he would agree with you in some regards, just again from my perspective. But again, I wanted to make that distinction. Here's another clip from him, a lot shorter, that I think will kind of continue today's conversation, Black versus Ninja, if you will. And I think it'll bring us into some places. I'll let you respond to this one first, brother. Again, I will challenge you not to get caught up in the messenger. Let's have a dialogue about the message.
I know because in Jamaica, when I did some research on it, because we had Arawak's Indian was in Jamaica first. But then when the Spaniards came there and enslaved them, they couldn't deal with being enslaved, so a lot of them were dying off. Man. So whenever they went and got Africans and started transporting them here, they left a small amount of them there and realized that they can deal with the slavery. So that's when they started transporting a lot more Africans there as well.
Now look at us. Why are we better in sports than anybody? Why are we born with this body and this physique? Because they strategically say, put this nigga with that nigga. Look how fine she is. Look how big she is. Put them two niggas together. Make him sleep with his mama. Make him sleep with his sister. Make him breed with his auntie. Boy, that's a fine nigga there. Boy, we need plenty more niggas like him. Where you get that nigga from? Look at his mama. Come here, give me a gal. Come here, heifer. Look at her. Now come here, nigga. Come look at the boy right here. Ooh wee. You think you just like the dogs? And it was paperwork on these niggas. Who they was bred, who bought them, who owned them, how they died. All this is documents. So no, not only did they take the body and breed them, they took the minds. We gotta develop a system that these niggas don't come to our house at nighttime and cut our throats. How can we take these niggas off the chains like we do the horses? We gotta break these niggas like we break horses. And they created a system to do that. We're gonna make this woman make sure this boy won't ever stand up and talk back like we had to kill his uncle.
You had that book that talked about that.
Yeah, I've read a lot of books. That's just
The Jews wasn't done like this. Ain't nobody been done like this here, and it still go on today. They still fucking our minds. They took our minds. We are walking empty. We like walking dead people. They tell us what we like. Why you think all of us wear Michael Jordan tennis shoes? All of us got Gucci belts. Why you think we all do the exact same thing like robots? All of our women got eyelashes. None of them don't do it. None of them don't do it. None of us don't do. None of us have separated from the pack. They got a button on us because they know us better than we know us, because we don't know nothing about the niggas. They teach their children about the niggas, and we don't know nothing about the nigga.
wow.
So at the tail end of that comment, he fell heavily into the very thing that we were cautioning anybody watching us today against, right? So the latter part was, well, again, that's the challenge. Like I love how you said, to mature.
Yeah.
Again, we're having the conversation, black versus ninjas from a mental standpoint. So he's on point when he says they fucked us in the mind. That he's on point about. But he ends it still making those blanket statements. Again, we have this idea that we all love Jordans, right? Or whatever. Right. But Jordan's rich not because of our money.
Right. We don't buy enough of them.
Exactly. As much as we say we love them, right?
We don't buy enough of
them.
Here
it is. And again, I'm not making an excuse for us. People hear when you start giving people facts, they start hearing an excuse. You're talking to someone who's an after-school instructor. I used to for 7 years. I'm not anymore. An after-school instructor. And yes, did I see a number of those black kids, parents, spend too much money on a pair of Jordans for their son or for their daughter, but that child has them shoes on for the entire year. I'm talking about a perspective on it. Like, yeah, did they spend 200 when they could have spent 70? Yeah, they did. One time.
Yeah, one time.
You know what I'm saying? While their white peers got Jordan 1 through 7 throughout the year.
Yeah.
We make it cool. White people go by. But it ain't our money. So we think all of us have Jordans. The reality is when I did after school programs at various schools, I might have a few Jordans in the poor school, beat up Jordans in the poor schools. Most of those kids still didn't have Jordans because their parents could never afford it. Like that's the reality that we don't speak to, and we'll say stuff. We all have Gucci belts. We all have Jordans. When I know half the Gucci belts, when I was a young clubber, half the Gucci belts were knockoffs. So we don't all do these things. So again, that's that blanket statement stuff that we have to be more mature about. But go ahead and give a response again, because there are some things that I thought was valuable. If you get outside of the messenger, there was still some value to
take the messenger away. He was very incoherent. and you have to listen for incoherency. You have to know it, because it won't. When you take your time to try to make it make sense, it actually doesn't make sense. It speaks to your vulnerabilities. As African Americans, we're very vulnerable to misinformation. People like that man that have you hot, he's wild, bro. Yep. No. That message that was very incoherent will get laughed at amongst people who can truly understand what he was saying. He said a whole, listen, man.
You didn't hear nothing. There were some good points.
Like what? Give me a good point that he made.
Yeah. You so locked in if you don't like him that you can't even hear the good point.
No, I don't even know the man not to like him.
I know you don't.
I'm saying the words, the way he say what he say, he counsels it. He counsels himself out. You make a brilliant statement, then you make a wild, crazy statement, and then when you try to bring them together, you like, that don't make no sense. It's like oil and water. We understand the water you was talking about. We understand the oil you was talking about. Now you put it together and it cancels itself out. Like it doesn't. It's now you, because since you seem to like Charleston, you can hear this stuff he's saying.
I literally distinguished the first point, what was accurate about it, and then I criticized what was inaccurate.
Man, the fact that he see.
But again, it ain't about he for me. I'm talking about the points.
No, listen to the points.
Let me. I gotta jump to the trees. Go ahead, let you finish.
No. I'm gonna say. Let me say this. I'm saying.
Oh man.
I'm saying when having a conversation to a marginalized community, your points have to be accurate. When talking to any damn community, your points have to be accurate.
I'm not disagreeing.
We can't accept.
You're still making it about him. I'm trying to have a dialogue.
Okay, Martin, if you say it again on the screen, I'm not making it about him. I'm making about the incoherency in the speech of that particular human being.
When you're saying the comments have to be accurate, you're actually referring that his comments need to be accurate. So you're making it about him.
I didn't say him.
But you don't have to say him.
Saying him. I said, whoever I heard. I know who I was listening to.
I'm having a dialogue about
like this.
The point.
Well, go ahead. So, all right, let's do this. No,
I hate that Latrice missed it, so we can't. I ain't gonna make her talk.
No, I tell you what you can do. What was it that man said that was accurate?
So he actually breaks down how we were bred. That is actually how those forms were done. The breeding forms were done exactly like he mentioned. They were done like that. If you remember, what's the famous?
Stop right there. I got a whole book on stop right there. But then he added in. They bred the son.
So you're still talking about he? You asked me what point?
I'm about to show you why the statement becomes inaccurate. Although they were breeding farms, anybody that breeds dogs know if you keep mixing the same breed together, they're going to be weak and they're not going to last. Let me finish. And so it'd be incorrect to keep the mother and the father and the sister back together because it would not make valuable offspring that would run a plantation better. They wouldn't make it, bro. They'd be sickly. They would die. Right. So I'm saying the fact that he put those two things together, it cancels the whole thing out as a lie, bro. And I can't keep arguing with you over that. Like, come on, bro.
Okay, so watch this. I'm not arguing with you. I'm watching this. So because I understand science, I understood that the mother with the father is inaccurate. I understand that part. The part that is still of value is the history when he says no other culture has been through this. So he's still accurate about the overall history.
Is that true?
Yes. Well, show me other enslavements where they here it is. It's very true. Matter of fact, let me go. Since now you asked that question. Now
I just asked the question.
Yeah. So let me answer the question. So think about what happened in South American enslavement versus North American enslavement.
Yeah.
You know, sugarcane bread was much harder than cotton and tobacco. As hard as that was, sugarcane was much harder. So they died off quicker.
Yes.
And so because they died so quicker is why so many of the enslaved Africans got sent to South America. Correct. Because the sugarcane was so hard, they died so quickly. So they just kept replenishing them by bringing them there. Yeah, so what happened is when the Great Britain shuts off the international enslavement trade, that Brother White, Charles White, accurately points out in this clip, he got things wrong. I'm not talking about.
Why are you saying his name? Why are you attributing his name? Don't mention that man's name. Talk through the message, not the person.
It's all good because that name bothers you. It's funny. But anyway, so So because the international slave trade was shut down, America figured out how to breed. So that is the part that made it unique. That's why there are periods during the population of the colony, they bred so many slaves that there were times in parts of the South where there are more Africans than whites in the entire state. That's how much breeding was done at certain periods. And then because they started coming here from Europe, they just naturally end up becoming the majority population. But there were periods where there were more enslaved Africans in certain parts of the country than there were whites. So yeah, that is accurate in that was done. But what I love that you pointed out is how he's wrong about how the breeding was done. You're right. I knew that scientifically he was wrong, but there's value in understanding the difference of the African American experience. So there was a point that was correct, that's worthy of us to be aware of, because these are dialogues. Our 12 years of public school education is not going to mention any of this. So even though he has some of it inaccurate as far as the specifics and the science of it, there's value in the dialogue talking about the fact that this happened to us. By us not being aware of it happening to us, sometimes we make blanket statements because we have not accurately understood some of that history. Latrice, again, I know you didn't hear the clip, but I see you been able to kind of formulate some thoughts about what you're hearing me and Brother Ankh go back and forth about. Any thoughts before I play another clip?
I think that that the delivery, and it's not about him, but I think his delivery does impede a lot of folks from receiving a message. And that's important with regard to that. And just in general, I don't have necessarily a positive framework of his delivery because of how, I guess, the use of the N-word and how he describes certain attributes about us, because it reinforces the negative stereotypes that are already existing about us. And so it's simply, when there's one of us who confirms that, then those who believe that latch onto it even more because he said it and he's one of them. So that's just my overall. I didn't hear the clip. That's my overall impact of his message.
Fair enough. All right, sounds good. Let me move. Got just a couple of more.
So can you hear me, Montoya?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was going to go to another clip. Did you go ahead and get your thought in real quick?
Yeah, first of all, America was always breeding slaves because they knew when they was talking to their trading partners, right? They already knew they was against it. And so they figured a way around it anyway to breed it, right?
Absolutely.
And they've been breeding animals since early animal husbandry. So they might not know the technical things, but they was good at it, right? They knew how to do it, and yes, they did that, and that's the majority of slaves are in America. But humans going to have sex too, on top of that, all right? And so I mean, but man, just I can't. If I start listening to that, bro, then I'm in trouble.
That's what I'm saying.
But it was good for the show, though. It's definitely good for the show.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's go to this comment right here. Hope Latrice, are you still there? Because I hope you hear this one, because I definitely want you to be the first one to respond to this one. May have lost her again. All right, hopefully she's just stepping away. I hope she gets to hear this.
I'm here.
Okay, cool. All right, let's play this clip again. Let's continue this conversation.
Number one, it says that matriarchy is inferior to patriarchy, which is the whole thing right there. You see that patriarchy is a sort of natural or divine order of things, which is not so. Two, that black men have believed and internalized the myth of white womanhood and Anglo-Saxon impositions, so that they place us in relation to where white women are.
There's two things a woman, I believe, being a black woman and a very proud black woman, can do for a man, make him or break him. And then you take into consideration how the black man has been degraded by the white man. His woman, adequately couldn't have the luxuries of another woman born the same just like her. This man has to, black men have stood by for a very, very long time and been humiliated by the system. He can't get the job that this fella can get. And you must understand that his wife might have to go on welfare. He has to stay in the humility of that. He has to watch the plumber, duck if the welfare worker come in there. You understand me? He has always been like made to feel he's below the next man. So you must, all this you must come, you know, take into consideration. You know, now black men are learning, you know, that they're part. They're beginning to feel like a man. They're getting their dignity and their pride back. So he needs a woman to keep on pushing him. Vice versa, you know. When you say about, you know, in the system, this system has destroyed actually the black man. You know, because everything that we've ever done, there's no part of this country that you can say, if you touch that a black man didn't bring it in here. You know, everything that they built, they've never been able to share with it. I don't even want to hear that. You know, what society have done just took our black men and destroyed their manhood. That's what they've done. They ain't abetted.
I'm certainly not in disagreement. I'm in 200% agreement.
We understand that what the brothers are going through now, as you say, the cultural national. But mightn't it all be very...
Think you know Black history? Think again. Unlock the untold stories and groundbreaking achievements that are not often taught in school with Black History Unlocked must-have digital PDF. Black history facts you probably did.
Wanted to let that channel get recognized for the work they were doing. I thought this clip was worth talking about because, again, as we talk about evolving the mindset, we've talked about in the first part of the show, not allowing these blanket statements to represent you if in fact it's not you, that is a mature way to think. I love that dialogue for this show because it was set in the 70s, and there was this dialogue with since the younger sister is kind of highlighting, you know, the issue she's seeing, and then in a sense the older lady say, well, hold on, young sis, you know, let's put this in context, in perspective as well. So I love, not only do I love the dialogue, but I think it's applicable right now with the way that we move through the dialogues in our community, in a sense, from this standpoint. So I think Brother Ankh beautifully highlighted that without a mature way of thinking about this specific conversation, we don't always recognize our wins. And so that older lady was kind of pointing out, hey, well, now some of our men are, you know, starting to have an opportunity. This is in the 70s, to move away from what she just highlighted, what had been done to them for years, where they are not allowed to feel like a man or be made to feel like a man. So I wanted to, if I could, Latrice, pinpoint that in we're 55 years from that moment she's speaking about. And so if we're able to recognize those wins, we would have dialogues a little better in our community about various issues. There's this current issue that's online right now after these tragic deaths, right? These tragic deaths that happened at the hands of black men recently, right? The guy killing all of his children, and the lieutenant governor guy, you know, doing what he did. There's these dynamic conversations. And so there's this divide that I feel like happens in our community that's bedded in a lot of historical stuff, right? And so, for example, when that lady says, hey, this is what's happened to the black man all these years, so hold on, young lady, before you just start kind of going with your going. Like in this situation, with the situation that happened, there are a lot of black men that would love what that older lady says, and says, yeah, that's what we've been through. But to Ankh's point, she was pointing out the opportunity black men were getting in the 70s. We've had more of those opportunities. Whether we recognize it or not, I'm not saying we're not still up against stuff, but we're no longer the beat down black man that woman, the older lady, was pointing out in the 70s. And I don't think we do a good enough job of recognizing that our ancestors got us to the point to where she was talking about. And there's been progress made that we don't get to lean on. Yeah, look at what the history did to us as a defense mechanism. Am I making sense? I'm trying to thread a thin needle here. Latrice.
You saying black?
I'm asking Latrice to go first, if she will.
So, but that last part you said about before you said threading the needle. You kind of lost me there.
Look at that. Great. So I'm kind of highlighting that there's still various levels of oppression that happen in our community.
Yeah,
Okay.
You work in that field. You're always presenting that, right? I'm just kind of highlighting that while that oppression exists, because we don't recognize the wins the way that Ankh talked about, quite often we will just lean into that oppression as a defense.
Yeah,
for why we're not stepping up. But I said some of that comes from not honoring that, one, our ancestors have given us opportunities to where now we can stand up with dignity. I'm just trying to really
I get
you,
and I understand that. And I think that what happens is that it's a story to them. It's a fairy tale even, because they didn't live it. So I'm learning about all of these things that happened way back when, but that's not my lived experience. And so, yeah, we've come up, my ancestors have come a long way, and I'm here. And these are my lived experiences. And when I look around at folks who don't look like me, their lived experience is one that is not, they don't get followed in the stores, and they don't get pulled over because they're driving while Black and those kinds of things. So when they still get caught up on the oppression, that it's because that's what they're living. They didn't live that way back when. They didn't live through enslavement. They didn't live through Jim Crow. They didn't live through the first civil rights movement. And so sometimes it's difficult to recognize that as a community of people, this is where we've come, because this is all that I know as an individual living in this space in this day and time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where it comes off from. And I think that is a reason why we are seemingly, sometimes it seems like we're stalled and stuck, because we don't recognize where we've come from, and we don't recognize the need to keep adding building blocks to that. You know, in some instances, we've settled and stalled. And, I think a lot of that has to do with my generation, Gen X, getting comfortable. I've arrived, I've left I've gone to the suburbs, and, I got my 2.5 kids and a fence, and that's behind me now. And we shouldn't, we should teach we should definitely teach our kids to be proud of who they are, but to also recognize that there is still struggle that they have to overcome. But there are a lot of folks that I encounter, and granted my sample size is small, where they don't want to acknowledge that history and where we've come and the things that we still have to do so that we have full parity in this country.
Any thoughts, Brother?
Yeah, things will never be equal. That's not how the world works. That's not how, even your kids, the equal thing, that's never going to be that. 2 kids in a household is never going to be equal, right? Mm-hmm. Because things are going to pan out differently based off of individual choices at times. Right. So there is a level of maturity that has to happen, of course. And then we can't actually imagine what our people went through. So speak to your point, we're saying that ain't still happening. But it's happening on different levels. And it is. It's institutionalized, one. Okay, it's in the institutions. So you got to break down the institutions. And the only way to break down institutions is to build your own institutions. People do it all the time. Chinese community, they build institutions, man. So we need to be into institution building that reflect our character and the way we feel about it as African Americans. The next point, there's a lag there, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the lag is the Black woman. She's lagged behind. So maybe African American males are afforded a whole lot of things that the African American woman is just trying to catch up to. She's looked at differently. She's looked at differently in her household. She's biblicalized, right? She's the helpmeet. You can't get that out your head, right? If you believe in the biblical tradition, you can't get it out your head. There's certain African customary traditions that make her lag behind. So there's a lag behind, and to her credit, she fights for what she needs to have, sometimes against us even helping her. So it's a wild conversation for me. Because I see it like my daughters, the way they have to be, the way they have to approach things. My son, he can just wild out. He can go outside with his hair any kind of way. It don't matter. Oh, don't let them daughters go out there. Boy, you better get that. So I'm just saying it's an interesting conversation. Once again, it's the mental dialogue.
Nah, good stuff. And I want to highlight and see if I can transition in this with these last couple of cuts. I don't want to keep y'all too much longer. But I also just kind of want to, now it's kind of a dialogue where we've been talking about the collective, right? We keep talking about the collective. I started out the show saying, hey, be careful with allowing a blanket statement. Like there are times if we're having dialogue with others, we love to say, we're not a monolith, right? And we're usually right when we're saying it. So I'm not even down. I'm not down on us for doing it. Typically, when we're saying to some other culture that's looking at us with a blanket statement that we're not a monolith, we're absolutely correct. I'm continuing to harp on, and I love your word, the maturity of understanding that we're not a monolith amongst ourselves when we're talking about ourselves, and this bigger conversation of accountability. We love to have these conversations about we in a collective way. I'm even saying this incorrect for where I'm about to go. There is no such thing as group accountability. I'm going to play this clip to explain it from a racial standpoint. You can have group accountability inside of a group where we agree to certain things, and as long as we abide by them, we can have group accountability. But there is no such thing as racial accountability. There's no such thing as ethnic accountability. There's no such thing, believe it or not, as Jewish accountability. But I'm going to play this clip and see if we can break that down.
Is pattern recognition ever misused? Absolutely. People can observe one incident, overgeneralize, and apply it to an entire group unfairly. That is a prejudgment, and it's worth distinguishing between the two. But here's what I want you to consider. The difference between prejudice and pattern recognition is evidence. If you have documented, repeated, observable behavior, that's a pattern. If you're drawing a conclusion from a single incident or a stereotype, that's a prejudice. And most of the people expressing black fatigue right now are not working from stereotypes. They're working from video footage, crime statistics, a lived experience. That's pattern recognition. Let's be clear about that. Thomas Sowell once said, when you want to help people, tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, tell them what they want to hear. The black fatigue conversation is uncomfortable. I understand that. But the discomfort isn't the enemy. The patterns are the enemy. And if our response to pattern recognition is to attack the people doing the recognizing, whether they're black or white, then we're not solving anything. We're just making sure nobody talks about it. The silence isn't protection. The silence is permission. And the bad actors have had way too much permission granted by you silent types. So the next time someone says they have black fatigue, instead of rushing to attack them, ask what specific patterns they're referring to. Because if the patterns are real, that's a conversation we need to have. And if they're not real, then show the receipts. That's how you actually win the argument. If you're not willing to look at the patterns, if you'd rather attack the messenger than examine the evidence, then perhaps you should consider culture. I'm She Brown, and I'm out.
So that's from the Consider Culture page or podcast, possibly. I don't know if it's a podcast. Latrice, again, you do this work. Anything interesting about what that brother had to say, from your perspective?
So black fatigue definitely needs to be addressed. I guess I'm not sure what his point was.
Okay, I'll help you with it a little bit. And again, remember, I don't play cuts because I agree or disagree with them.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta play that again. I kind of was like, is he incoherent?
Yeah, I was trying to take notes, and I'm like, I don't.
I get it.
I need you to connect the dots.
So let me give some context that it'll help y'all get it.
And this last
here's the context. It's a short clip. So to give the context, and again, I play these for everybody watching. We play these clips to have dialogue. It's not whether I agree or disagree with them. That's not for y'all. That's for my wife, because I know both of y'all know that already. So here's the context that he's coming from to give you some clarity, Patrice.
Okay.
So personally, it's the opposite of what I was introducing prior to the clip, just so y'all know. But what he's introducing is he's talking about the idea of basically, he's clarifying, don't take one incident and make a blanket statement, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. But he kind of goes on to further to say, well, if the data shows it to be true, these are issues we should talk about. So what he's talking about is the accountability. Now, he's someone that would believe in black on black crime. While we both of us know, all of us know we could dismiss that with the overall data. So we could challenge him personally, but what he's leaning into in that conversation is, well, if there's enough data to show that this is happening, then he's saying our community chooses to be silent about stuff like black on black crime. Our community chooses to be silent on, I would assume, I'm just making some assumptions about it now, about the abortion rates or whatever, because, we both know they're presenting this data in a vacuum. But from his perspective is, well, if the data is there, let's have the conversation. So he's saying it from but there's worthiness in a bigger dialogue about what he's talking about, pattern recognition versus evidence. That's the bigger conversation for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just to give you that context, now let me let you speak to what you're hearing.
Right. And so for me, whenever I look at an issue that folk, I'm the person who wants to know what caused it.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? And so you can't have these types of conversations and say, well, pattern recognition versus, the data and all of that. It all fits, but then you have to begin to peel back the layers of how did we get to this space? What contributed to these things? So the conversations are definitely worth having, but we can't have it in a silo. We have to have it where we understand the nuances that lead us to those places. When we talk about, things like black on black crime, well, that's because, way back when some white supremacists said that black folks are, there's this crime, and it happens in our community, but it happens because oftentimes, we live in homogenous communities. And so it may appear that there's black on black crime because that's the data that we're focused on. That's because that's the data that that's our lived experience. But when you open your lens and you begin to explore all of the data that ties into this, not just a subset, not just a siloed piece of data, you'll see that there is also white on white crime. There's Asian on Asian crime. There's Hispanic on Hispanic crime. And what is one of those main leading contributors is socioeconomic issues in those communities. And so it's important that we look at the right data the right way, and all of the data that ties into what created the environment or what created the situation for those things to happen.
Right. And so where I want to go even deeper and further, again, I was setting this up, is because even to him and to anyone on here, here's the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, even if you have the conversation, even in the manner that you and I would disagree with, right? The way that he would want to have the conversation in the silo, we would disagree with it. The reason he would want to have that conversation in the silo is because when he says we need to have the conversation, the we need for him is some perspective of accountability, that it would be us taking accountability. And that's the notion that I'm wanting to blow up. There is no such thing as group accountability in reference to people that are not in your circle. And not only are they in your circle has to agree to certain things in order to even have accountability amongst yourselves. When you don't understand that, we continue to mistakenly have conversations Like we as the black people, either we don't do this or we do this thing that we disagree with, and we keep making these blanket statements as if there's someone that could hold you accountable for the things we say. We'll say we need to have these conversations. Here's a small example of what I'm talking about. At best, what a society can do from a group perspective, that it won't be received well, but I'm going to speak to it and let y'all jump in on this. So, for example, a college campus, let's say a college campus has a rash of rapes, like more than they normally have, right? And so obviously that's going to be a point of issue on that college campus, whatever. They already have whatever they have in place, different hotlines and all these type of things. The school already has that in place because of the history. For whatever reason, there's this rash of rapes that take place. So they'll have different dialogues amongst the students. They'll have sessions amongst the girls, amongst the boys, the students, and whatever, and they'll talk about these scenarios that have come up to try to improve on it. But as a school, what they may end up doing, based on, let's say, some of these are not just there, that maybe there's somebody actually grabbing women, and actually it's a horrific situation. So what the school will say is, you know what, we're going to put up more lighting because this year a couple of examples were on this path. So the school as a society puts up more lighting. But there's nothing that all the men could do at that school, or all the women could do at that school, or all one group could do to hold the few people that are willing to rape. Because unfortunately, as you've heard me talk about on this show before, Latrice, people really don't conceptualize how exponential a few people are when it comes to crime on society. And because we never conceptualize that, they'll say, hey, remember that year we had this rash of crimes and the lights got put up to make things improve for the years to go forward? But that year may not have been any more rapists than the other previous years. It was just where they took place that society decided to take accountability and say, let's try to make this walkway safer. That's the best you can do. There is no type of accountability or cultural that the school could do to avoid those few boys that are willing to act that way. And that's something that we never conceptualize. And we have a lot of dialogues. For example, what happened with the lieutenant governor and this one extreme case of a man who killed 8 children, which is a rare thing. And we'll have that dialogue as an indictment of our community. And this is just an extreme example of crime being exponential and horrible to the point where I'm not saying don't talk about it, but we'll start talking accountability in a way that's impossible.
Yeah. Okay. So I get that. And I think,
Yep, I get it.
I think that it's in how and when you begin to have the conversations that need to be had. It's not necessarily about accountability for a people, but it's about understanding the environment where those types of things are nurtured, if you will, or they are caused it to happen. Like, I think a lot of folks immediately started talking about the mental health aspect, but you need time to grieve the loss and deal with the anger before you can get to, this is the part that we need to work on. And so I think it's about timing and the approach when you have those conversations. Like, it's too soon, as they say.
No, absolutely. Brother Uncle, you still there? I want to make a thought. I got one more clip and I'm gonna let you guys go. Any thoughts?
I'm a pass on that. I got black fatigue.
I can dig it. Fair enough. That was classic. That was classic. So here's my last clip for the day, and we'll get out of here on this. And this is actually going back to the systemic. As much as I just kind of railed on there's no such thing as group accountability, I just thought this was an interesting clip. Oh man, I didn't realize it was this long. I might not play this one. I'm sorry, I should have broke this one up. Let me play a little piece of it. Can I pull this off? Now, I don't want to take y'all time. So we're going to kill this last clip. I am going to, I do want to leave y'all with a thought from a brother that I follow called Eli Marcus. And it builds on what I was just talking about. I think what I'm talking about has to be built on further, because I don't know that, generally speaking, that we've challenged the concept of group accountability in a way that people are ready to understand. I'm not saying I'm articulating it as well as I would like to, but I do feel like
did a good job.
I feel like this, what Eli Marcus writes, is something that we seriously need to think about, because this idea of group accountability actually harms us, in my opinion, in approving, in us being responsible for the things that we actually can control. And so this is what he has to say. I'll get y'all last thoughts and we're out of here. So Eli Marcus said, and it's in reference to all the things that are going on now. He just wrote this. He says, the white community is a myth. The black community is a myth. It is a complete myth to fuel a capitalistic agenda and maintain control over consumer psychology within specific demographics based on identity politics. Your actual first community are the individuals who live in your home, then neighborhood, then zip code. Even if that community is majority of one racial group, it's illogical to assume communal ties with random blacks or whites across jurisdictions, across states, and jurisdictional coverage. Your actual first community is where you pay taxes as a matter of priority. Yes, you expand wider. There are some ties to a wider community, but it is lower on the priority in terms of its immediate impact and relevancy to you. Now, with that said, research relevant, negative, and positive statistics to the jurisdiction you actually live and operate in, and hold the specific leadership accountable of that jurisdiction, from the leader of the home, pastor of a church, HOA of a community, to the mayor of a town, to the governor of the state. If there is more positive than negative in the jurisdiction you function in, stop being an entitled little ungrateful brat and buy your leadership a gift, maybe even make them a sandwich for doing a good job in keeping you safe and keeping the community productive and strong. If there is more negative than positive in the jurisdiction you function in, vote them out or move out. But before you do that, spray yourself down with holy water and cast the demons out of you for whatever behavior patterns and habits you have contributed to the pot of rot exuding from your jurisdiction. Then go out and become a refugee until a superior community accepts you into their orderly and safer community. Now, if you're barking and holding random black or white men or women accountable for the violent and criminalistic behavior of what's affecting your jurisdiction, and who don't even know you, have no ties to you, does not function in your jurisdiction, and has a positive background in their own reality amongst their own communities, you fundamentally don't comprehend the order of things, and your mind has been hijacked by the illusion of racial community for consumer psychological warfare to fuel the dark side of capitalism. Now step out of it. I personally love these words. I have this one quote, and I'll let y'all respond, that I always say. I say, perpetual struggle is always a hustle.
You, next time you read that, don't read all that, because it was heavy, right? It was heavy on the front end, easy in the middle, and heavy on the back end. You should like bop, because you're talking about you're introducing ideas that everybody might not be familiar with. And I'm talking about myself, like, okay, I heard you say that the black community is a myth. Did you say that in that?
Started out with that. Yep.
And I say, I'm a fight him on it. And I was sitting here thinking, I was like, damn. And then you said, in your house is your first community. I always said, okay. Then we walk out, that's your next community. Okay. And I say, you're a trip. That should be a whole different show. Yeah, you're a trip.
Let's do it. Let's revisit next episode, maybe. Let's revisit
that accountability. And that community accountability. That need to be that community accountability, and the black community is a myth. That need to be a show, bro. That's heavy. I need to really think about that before I open my mouth, right? On the myth of the black community. Very, very interesting, because I know the black is wild. Just that idea, because there's no stability in black. Like, you can't tell, anybody can be in the thing at that point, right? The majority of human beings are people of color. Anyway, the majority live in the temperate zones. Naked. Humans come out naked. Okay. Now, The community part, a person, right? You can't be held accountable for something you didn't agree with. If I date, say, a Chinese woman, right? I'm saying I don't advocate it because I date black women, right? But if I date Chinese women, am I breaking the accountability? We didn't even talk about that. Did I get a vote in that? Right? If you know what I'm saying? If I decide to sell dope, did I break a rule? Right? Last time I checked, everybody be in that. Whether it's your mother, your father, your aunt, they all see you do it. Where's the accountability? There ain't no accountability to that. So you're right. I can agree with the no group accountability because we ain't sat down and figured out you got to go to church.
And it's not realistic for.
It's not realistic. So wait, do other communities have it though? I'm saying it's. So you saying it's a myth just for African Americans, or
it's a myth for all groups. So
I got you.
I'll say this in the Latrice. Yeah, it's a myth for all groups. I'm gonna say this to give you one example, and then let Latrice closes out. So one example is I've talked about this before in the thing. When you're inside of a group, you know your negatives and your positives because you live it out. So you're aware of it. When you see other groups, you naturally highlight what they do positively.
Yeah.
And you're not aware of their negative. So what happens is, so for example, we always love to talk about the Chinese community. I mean, the Jewish community, for example, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens is you're seeing a particular group of Jewish people who believe it, because Jewish, they have their arguments inside of their religion about how you should be Jewish, right? They have their different facts, right? But what happens is you just happen to see one faction who all have agreed to a certain order that they live by. We blanket it to all Jewish. That group back in the day would have been battling another group up in New York when they were in the slums because they didn't believe the same thing, and they would have been one mafia group destroying the other mafia group. Like you understand what I'm saying, Uncle? I'm just kind of saying, break it down. You're applying. Oh, look at what the Jewish do. But if you were inside the Jewish community, you would know that's one set that did this wonderful thing.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, but because we see our own dirt, we apply it psychologically in the wrong way. That inside the Jewish community, they could tell you like when I brought the Chinese owner on here that had all the restaurants, when I was telling him like we admire how they trust one another, and when I broke down how we were, he was confused. He was like, "No, we use the same thing to figure out who I trust. We do the same thing for who we trust." But to us, it looked like they were more trusted.
Hey, Marto, you know what you got to do? You got to do a mental dialogue directly on the community of skeptics. That way I can bring my audience up and have them participate in that experience. You call it the mental dialogue on the community of skeptics. I know you have the live experience, but I think this is really experience for my audience. I like that. And make sure y'all like and subscribe the channel, because he going to forget that. Like and subscribe. Okay, mental dialogue right now. Go do that. Bring it up. Go tune in. Whole different type of dialogue. I've been tuned in. He has political conversations. You know what I'm saying? He has very intelligent black men and black women discuss these issues, man. Make sure y'all tap in, man, and give him that viewership that he deserves, man. He's been working hard at this for years, right? And I don't know how people miss the mental dialogue. I think it's one of the dopest shows on YouTube, right? I always say that. You know what I'm saying? And when I wasn't busy, I would come out and support. You would support me. You've always supported my platform. And we got to do that book review you have. There's a way. He got a difficult way of wanting to do his damn book, but it requires you to do it is. So I'm going to do that for him. I'm going to do that for him.
Thank you for all of that.
Read that comment, though. You left a comment you never read, though. You never read that comment. That's a sure.
Yeah. There's a guy that agreed with you earlier. He said Charleston White makes some valid points and mixes it in with some BS and misinformation. Dangerous. So he agreed with what you said earlier.
He weaponized the information.
Right. Fair enough. Let me throw it over to Latrice. When you talk about intelligent sisters, this is one of my sisters that has held me down for years on Blog Talk before we even got onto this video thing. So Latrice, thank you for your day. Tell them about the name of your book so people can start hearing about it. I can't wait till you finish this book. And we've said a lot here. So if you want to make a closing comment on what we've been talking about, and I am going to take Unc on that and continue a conversation off of Eli's Eli's commentary, because for when I wrote my book, Re-Education of the Negro, that's literally where I want to advance our community to, for those who are ready, not this group accountability thing, but just a perspective of understanding your first priority is your circle. Their first responsibility is that. Our ancestors, speaking of the wins that Ankh talked about, and I always highlight them as well, I don't know that collectively we understand our ancestors have got us to the point to actually do what Eli talks about in that thing. We actually have the opportunity. Our ancestors couldn't always be responsible for their immediate circle. Our ancestors got us enough wins to where we could focus and actually build the institutions that Brother Ankh talked about from inside out by being responsible for what's immediate first. That's what I consider re-education of the Negro in 2026. Go ahead, Corey.
And in a sense that our ancestors tried to teach us that too, from a different type of perspective, because my grandmother made me go to church growing up. And I remember an old song that they used to sing, and I had to look it up to make certain that it was my head was going in the right direction.
Okay.
And it's called Sweep Around Your Own Front Door. And it's essentially saying sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine. And I think that's what Eli is saying. Make certain that you're doing the things within your first community, your household, to ensure that you're positively contributing to your community. And that's something that, in that church song, that's what they're saying there, make certain that you keep getting your own stuff together before you can then branch out and judge someone else or what have you. But that first line, sweep around your own front door before you can sweep. I think that's the gist of the message that Eli is trying to get across. And it is important. Self-governance is a maturity thing.
Yes.
Because it comes with self-awareness, and self-awareness is hard. If you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, these are the things that I need to work on in the way that I contribute to my community, or I don't contribute to my community, then you can't get to that place where you can govern yourself accordingly, because you've not owned your stuff. And so I think that's important. Great dialogue.
No, I want you to finish. I thought you were finished.
Okay. My book is Falling Black in Love Again, and the focus is on healing ourselves individually so that we can reconnect as a community and reimagine what a modern day village would look like for us. Also going to have the Common Ground Supper Club, where we're going to we're having dialogues around it's Black centered, but allies can participate. Because even if we go back to the civil rights movement, we didn't do this in isolation. And so we got to be particular. So the conversation will be Black centered. And if you don't agree with that, then it's not for you. It's open. It's not politically correct. It's just, it's not a safe space. It's a brave space. So that will be coming, and the focus of that will be, what do we do going forward? Because as they're trying to resegregate us, I'm still working on the catchy title, but the concept just arrived last night. So book is coming out in August. Common Ground Supper Club will have our first meeting in June. So lots going on.
Absolutely. We'll be highlighting pieces from that book on the mental dialogue perspective. Look forward to joining you for what you just offered. So I definitely agree to that. And the last thing, just as a closing thought for anybody that have enjoyed this show. So what happens is, we have had a unique African-American experience as Black people in this country. The re-education and elevation of mindset is understanding that our ancestors we all understand, they were dehumanized. They were not first recognized as humans. They went through the period to get the second-class citizenship. Well, our healthy minds is getting to a point where we understand, one, we've always been human. And so once you understand that, then we are allowed to do what humans do. And so instead of having a blanket concept of look at what those Black people do over here and all this kind of stuff, at the end of the day, humans always separate from those who harm one another. That's a human trait. We actually have looked at getting out of the hood as a bad thing years later, when that's actually normal for humans to do so. The idea of collectiveness is to go find another people with the same value as yourself to elevate your standard of living. That's normal to do, and we struggle with how that looks because we have this collective viewpoint. It's not our fault that we have it. the African American experience and struggle is why we see it that way. The elevation of mindset is moving to be the humans we've always been, and properly esteeming your children to know that, and they'll be okay with the proper esteem. There's a systematic system that still works on us having that proper esteem, but we're in a place now to sweep around our own door, as Latrice said. Love y'all. See y'all when we pop up next time. Can't wait to do the show with you, brother. Subscribe and all that good stuff. Holla at y'all. Great show today.
I put your channel in there for them to make sure y'all go over there. We got about 70 people watching. Nice. Go ahead and hit that. I put the channel link in there. Go ahead and subscribe. Support the sister, support the brother. Yo, very healthy individuals. I always determine a person's health based off the level of their conversation.
Oh, good stuff, man. Appreciate y'all. Holla at y'all. Have a good weekend.
All right, peace.